is E&P Reports, a vodcast from editor and publisher. Since 1884, the authoritative voice of news publishing. And this episode sponsored by IQ Audience Plus by Town News. Consumer revenue has never been more important. Digital leaders at media organizations worldwide understand the need to accelerate its growth now. Plus, traditional one-size-fits-all paywalls aren't the answer. They're blunt instruments that treat all visitors the same way. IQ Audience Plus is a smart, dynamic metering solution that empowers media companies to maximize revenue by identifying key audiences, seeding engagement, and growing membership and subscriptions. Supercharge your consumer revenue, grow engagement, and bolster your advertising income now with IQ Audience Plus. Visit townnews.com EP today to learn more. And greetings, I'm Mike Blinder, publisher of E&P. Quick housekeeping, if you are listening to me on your favorite audio podcast platform, Stitcher, Deezer, Apple, Google, what have you, please follow us. Watching on our YouTube channel, smash that bell below right next to the subscribe button. You'll get an update each and every time we upload a new episode of E&P Reports. I'm very excited about this interview because it brings up a topic that's always been near and dear to me, going between different forms of legacy media when it comes to the different aspects of our profession, media, news publishing, what have you. I have a radio and TV background. Many of you know that, but I came from the talent side, wasn't that talented, went into sales, and before I knew it, I was a manager, but always on the business side. And that's happened a lot. I know a lot of people that have moved between, television, radio, and the print industry, as well as the digital side of it, within the business side. But I haven't interacted with that many on the news side. So with your kind permission, Adam Darsky, please join me. Adam is our guest today. Adam, first of all, where do you hail from, sir?
Well, I'm born and raised Houston, Texas. So I'm a Texan, so you may hear it come out every now and then. But I live in Westfield, New Jersey.
Okay, excellent.
So that's started in the South, made it up to the Northeast. That's right.
Yeah, you're the old Tony Soprano country, correct?
Right.
All right. And if people don't know what I'm talking about, you should really go back and watch those old episodes before the new. Never mind. That was a show. I can do whatever. Here's what I love about your background, sir. You come from the news side. Well, you have a little ink in your veins. You came out of college and you worked for a little while at a local Texas newspaper. Am I correct, sir?
Right. When I was coming out of SMU in my senior year, I wrote for a small paper just north of Dallas called the Richardson News, and it came out twice a week. And I would cover high school volleyball and high school football and feature stories and just a lot of sports up in that community, just outside of Dallas.
Which we all know in Texas, no one is interested in high school. I'm kidding.
Not at all.
Just about everybody, when you think about the, Friday Night Lights and all that. But then you got bit by the broadcast bug. You jumped ship and worked into radio first. What happened to you?
Yeah. So from there, I went to a all sports radio station in Dallas called Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket. I started as an intern there, produced a little, ran the board a little, and was really fascinated by that. And then went from there into TV.
You traveled across the U.S. at different markets at different levels of television news. Can you just give us a kind of the quick, if I went to your LinkedIn profile and tried to read your first paragraph, what different aspects of television news did you do?
Yeah, so I was a news producer started in Market 163. I was in Sherman, Texas, in the Dallas area, just north of Dallas, really in between Dallas and Oklahoma City almost, and worked my way all the way up, went to produce in Savannah, Georgia, Tucson, then to Houston. It was great to be there for two reasons. One, because it was my hometown, and two, because it's a top 10 market. Started weekends there, moved up to the 5 p.m. and then ended the 10 p.m. news, which is, if you, for a young news producer, producing the 10 o'clock news in your hometown is a really, really big deal. Then after that, up into management. Charlotte, North Carolina, and my first executive producer job at the NBC affiliate there. Then to New York City, WABC, executive producer of the morning show. I mean, it's the most watched local morning show in America. It was pretty unbelievable. Then after that, to an assistant news director job at WTNH, New Haven, Connecticut, the New Haven, Hartford market. And then back to executive producer at News 12, New Jersey. I was living in Jersey, commuting to Connecticut. So it was a long commute, daily commute back and forth. Wanted to get something a little closer to home. News 12 is right around the corner, literally and figuratively. So it was good to work there.
Okay. So now the reason I'm interviewing you is you have a brand new position.
Yes.
Someone we've interviewed on this platform before, someone that I've known for years. And this industry does know a gentleman by the name of Mike Shapiro.
Yes.
Some of this industry does not like Mike Shapiro because Mike Shapiro, in my humble opinion, is one of the pure, I would call, disruptors of the newspaper industry. In other words, Mike has put together a network of locally managed pure play websites, and there are different, what I could call hubs happening all over the US of his platform called Tap Into. But the biggest and largest cluster of these hyper local news entities is between New York City and Philadelphia. Am I correct? It's most of New Jersey right now.
That's right. That's right.
We're talking a lot of local cities now. And if you look at this corridor, it's not only one of the most populated corridors in the United States, suburbs to a number of different metros. Am I saying that correctly? But
That's
it's
correct.
one of the most over-mediated corridors in the United States. Would you agree?
Yes.
I mean, you got DMAs from Philadelphia and New York overlapping each other, right? Then you got that stuff from Baltimore kicking in on the southern side. I mean, it's just, New Jersey is, and I remember I was born and bred in Philly, so I'm very familiar with Jersey. Jersey is the bedroom to a lot of different places, correct?
Right. And, a lot of it from a DMA standpoint, you've got New York coming down,
right,
Philly going up, and then they overlap. And then you've got almost where it is everywhere, and then no man's land, because it kind of gets lost in the middle. And that's why I think the tap into model is great, because it gets into these communities. It gets in these communities that are far away from the big guys, so to speak. And we're in these communities where people can get their hyper local news.
But okay. But the reason that many of the E&P audience, and we've just tagged a lot of our pages, and we're looking now at some really cool third-party data, and 71%, this makes me feel good about, is C-suite executive owner managerial decision makers, mostly in the newspaper industry. Do you understand? That's who you're talking to right now.
Yeah.
And you're a disruptor. You're coming into these markets as a pure play. And you're positioned for all of these now. You are now what, head of content? Am I right? Or what is the official title?
Yes, I'm the director of content. Yes.
Well, first of all, what's it like to go from the environments you've been in, the broadcast TV environment, and become a pure hyper-local, pure play disruptor in the news spectrum? Is that a big leap or a no leap, in your opinion?
Well, I think it's a no leap, because
Okay.
I'm doing the same stuff to a point that I've always been doing. It's providing content and working on content, editing content, creating content to the viewer, to the reader, to the consumer. And it's just a different way of thinking, because now we're at the hyper local level. Look at WABC in New York City. It's a big, wide audience. Here at Tap Into, it's really deep into the neighborhood, onto the block, into the house, figuratively more than literally, and what's going on in the community. At the bigger stations, you can't, it's harder to get down into the block. It's harder to come down into these, especially here in Jersey, into these suburban areas.
Well, in the old days, you did. In the good old days, when money was flowing left and right, and the big newspapers, I mean, I know I'm much older than you, I can tell. I mean, I remember many years, but when I was managing small radio stations, In small markets. I remember I was an AM radio guy when morning shows were big. Remember those days? No one watched the Today Show. You always had a morning man in every market that played 4 records an hour, news, sports, weather, everything, all talk and just lots of banter. We had, when we covered a school board meeting, there was someone from from a TV station would come in. Someone from the big paper, the Daily, maybe 30 miles away would come in. Those days are gone now, right? Because you've stripped.
Right, because money is tighter, there are fewer people, and there are more newscasts. And a lot of these newscasts, and I've done it, so I know, rely on the national feed services coming from CNN, or when I was at ABC, they have a clearinghouse called ABC News One, which is where all the video from all around the country goes. So it's really easy for me as an ABC affiliate in New York City to grab something that may be eye-catching or kitten in a tree or something like that happening in Paducah when I really should be down here in Westfield, New Jersey, or Newark, New Jersey, or Toms River, New Jersey, one of these communities here, looking at what's going on in my community. It's easy, and with fewer people, less staff, more newscasts, it's easy to grab video. It's easy to grab the talker. And it's also easy to grab stuff that's happening in Nebraska. I mean, no, I'm not hating on Nebraska. I'm just saying it because it's far away. It's harder to find stories in your community. It takes work. You have to get up and away from your desk. The news doesn't. I remember I had an executive producer in Houston. I was doing the late news with, if it was 4 or 5 o'clock, and one of the reporters didn't have a story, he would say, you know what? I know you've been working the phones here. Why don't you head out, go sit at the Starbucks, grab a cup of coffee. Maybe something will come to you. Maybe you'll see something. Maybe you'll work a source, because the news is not here in the newsroom.
It's not just picking up the phone and calling the police station and saying, what have you got? We used to do that in our morning. I used to hear him, hey, what do you got this morning? What do you got this morning?
What do you got?
You got to go out and find it. I get that. But let's go back to the hole that has now been opened by this lack of the larger dailies. Remember, the newspaper industry, in my opinion, is 2 separate entities now, the big dailies and the others. Notice I didn't start saying alternative weeklies, niche. It's just the big dailies and the others now.
Okay.
Because the big dailies used to be all things to all people. They're not anymore. It's hard to have a newsroom of that staff. You agree? Which means that the New York papers and the Philadelphia papers aren't covering the Jersey suburbs like they used to, or the Trenton paper for that matter. Do you agree?
Yes, I agree.
So there are still hyper-local print publications now you're competing with in some of these markets. You are a disruptor. You're taking advantage. This is why some people hate Mike Shapiro and some follow the hell out of him, because what he's doing is making money. I mean, let's look at the success you've had in New Jersey. That audience tripled through COVID. Am I correct? I looked at the metrics. It's pretty much tripled. You have advertising revenues going up, and you have building huge databases of email subscribers and huge databases of social media subscribers. That is building an audience, but starting new brands, not taking advantage of those older legacy brands. Where are you on that? I mean, I have to ask the question because some people are listening going, my God, this guy is coming. Are you the future? This is what I'm trying. You came out of broadcast TV. You're now embedded in that pure play world. Is there room for both? I have to ask that question.
Meaning, is there big for both at the big TV
No,
level?
The hyper local level. How many brands can survive if a pure play? This is happening all over the U.S. Digital startups are happening, taking advantage of some of the problems going on in the industry and building new brands. This is what I'm saying. Are you okay with that? And is that what the mission is? Go ahead.
Yeah. I think the consumer, and if I'm not answering your question right, please kind of bring it back. I think the consumer wants to get news in their neighborhood. Period. Okay, that's what they're looking for.
No matter what the platform is.
Right. And exactly. I think our brand is a trusted brand that has been around. It just didn't start yesterday. Which, look at the readership, look at the franchisees, look at the great original journalism stories that we're telling. It's important and it matters. And I think through COVID, people have a different lens, literally and figuratively, through which they're looking. They're not worried about kitten in a tree and wherever. They want to know what affects their community,
Right.
their safety, their family, and there's no better way than the model like Tap Into, because we are here in your community telling you what's going on.
For those that don't
And
understand the Tap Into model, if I just may interject, people join the franchise. They own their local site. Some of the Tap Into franchisees, let me call them publishers, because they truly are publishers, come from a sales side and need assistance on your side. Many come from the editorial side and need help on the sales side. It's hard to find a jack of all trades. Do you agree in this industry?
yes, and part of the reason why I'm in this job is to provide that support for the folks that don't have as much of the journalism background as I would. So I don't have the sales background like you do. I don't have the sales background like that franchisees did or do. So I can help provide them with some of the journalistic ethics. If they, one emailed me and say, hey, trying to work on this paragraph, I need a word. Can you help me? Absolutely, I can do that. So while I'm learning about the sales, the advertising, the marketing through the franchisees and through working with Mike, I bring in the quarter century of editorial. Makes me sound really old. Quarter century of editorial and writing and ethics and all that stuff that I can provide for them.
Well, I first of all got to give you some kudos for that, because in just about every success story that we've dissected here at E&P, a true hyper-local working, whether it's pure play like you, whether it's a young entrepreneur buying an older brand and turning it around, it's not brain surgery, my friend. It's just going back to basics. It's good journalism. It's providing a great product. It's saying to yourself, when you're looking at your product, whether it's digital, print, both, email, social, is this what a human being wants to see to understand their local community? And that's what it all boils down to.
And look, there's a time to watch the kitten in a tree video,
Exactly.
and there's a time to watch or read the story about, hey, this is going on in my community. There's safety impacts at my local high school or at the police station or as a result of a police investigation or something like that. And one is while you're sitting on the couch flipping through your phone watching videos saying, hey, look at this cat in a tree. I don't feel like there's a lot of value there. I feel like people want impactful local community journalism. And I think all those words are equally important at different levels. They want truthful, important, impactful journalism that helps them feel safe, that helps them feel good, that helps them know what's going on in the community.
All right, so let's just touch on another aspect of the Tap Into local franchise model that I'm aware of. The Tap Into local franchisee has the ability to do a lot of native sponsored branded content. I mean, I'm using three separate words because there's a billion different words. I remember, I tell this story, and I don't know if I ever did it on this platform. The first time I ever heard the word native advertising was at the Chicago Sun-Times. They flew me in. I was consulting them like 10 years ago. They were having this big meeting. They brought me in, made me sign an NDA and said the words native. And I thought they were selling ads to possibly, tribal, and then I'm listening to it. You do what's called the consultant shuffle. You just smile and listen, try to figure out what they're talking about.
Right.
And then eventually I looked at this guy next to me who was about 20, and I said, they're talking advertorial. And he said, no, it's native. I said, no, it sounds advertorial. No, it's native. And I looked it up in Wikipedia, and it said, the first paragraph said a form of advertorial, but it's not. Native, as defined, or sponsored or branded content means you in editorial have a say over this commingled content from the advertising community. It has to pass some form of muster. Do you agree? It has to have value to the reader. It's advertorial as defined means you're throwing a page in a newspaper in Times New Roman type that says at the top advertisement, and you're fooling someone where they think it's an ad. Native or sponsored or branded means the content has value, but you're allowing the advertising community. So you have different platforms on Tap Into that allow advertisers to contribute what you may call a local press release, a local story about their business. And of course, it's monitored by the publisher, right? If they put up something wrong, it's going to get killed. How do you feel about that? Television hasn't really dived into that as much. There are some publishers in our industry that resent it, refuse to do this because they think it's the final death blow to these brands. What is your feeling about that?
I think that television has kind of receives the user-generated content kind of on the honor system. If there's a storm going on and Bill in town X sends in video of flooding, we're going to run it on the air, assuming that it's from that flood. There's really no verification. Let's just put it on. I recall, a few years ago when Prince died, there was a video that circulated of a city hall lit up in purple, when in fact it was from 10 years ago in memory of a police chief or a sergeant or something. It was killed on the line of duty. So there's a sense of, you send it to us, we believe you, we're going to put it on.
Gotcha.
I think with the Tap Into model, there's more vetting. There's got to check it out, got to make sure it's true, have to make sure it passes the test. And I think it's good for Tap Into, because you're kind of deputizing the community to send in information, to send in stories. Yes, it's a press release. Yes, it's an advertorial, but it's a way to contribute to the site. It's a way to get information in, and it's a way to, stop me if you've heard this before, have people get information and know what's going on in their community. Yes, it's fully disclosed because it's submitted by the township about the parade, or the borough about something that's going on this weekend. So it's kind of blurring the line between PR. Well, what's PR and what's news. And look, the FCC came out very clear a few years ago and says any sort of VNR or any sort of thing that you didn't shoot had to be explicitly flagged by saying, provided by, Bill's Ice Cream Shop Incorporated, or, something like that. I think it's important to us as someone who gathers information from the community that we're gonna publish those sort of things, and it helps. It helps our folks get information. It helps our folks stay up to date, and our franchisees and reporters have relationships with them where they're going to know what's going on in the community. And, it's good when there is something taking place for them to say, hey, Tap Into site franchisee X, here's a press release. Here's what's going on this weekend. Publish it.
There you go. All right. So we have to wrap this thing up because I've been told I go too long. There's this rule about it's my show. I'm not going to chat for 3 hours. No. Somehow, and then the metrics show that you basically have an audience between 18 and 25 minutes, and we've already done our 25. But we can go on now. Everybody should just turn it off because they say 25 minutes. I don't care. The big question, the gotcha question's coming, though. I'm just kidding. There's a lot of talk right now about trying to help support the free press. That final check on power. It has to do with things like legislation in Congress that I don't know if the Local Journalism Sustainability Act, which doesn't look good right now as everything's getting sliced and cut out of these bills, basically says that perhaps Congress should allow businesses who advertise on hyperlocal sites, sites or in publications or in broadcast can get a tax credit. You as a who hires a journalist should get a tax credit, and those that subscribe should get a tax credit. However, full disclosure, Tap Into maintains a free, you do no metering, you do no paywall. Mike has screamed that to the industry. He writes for my magazine every now and then, and he actually puts that out there saying, don't lock your content down. You're nodding your head on that one. I was going to ask you, because broadcast rarely, ever, I don't think I know of a broadcast station that charges for digital content. So
look, we don't want people to have to choose between buying food, getting medicine, taking care of your family financially, and good journalism. We don't want them to have to choose between that. We want them to come onto us for free and get the information.
You have no idea how that's upsetting possibly a local competitor, a small newspaper in a market that you're competing with that's starting to charge for content, going, oh my God, I got this. And patches starting to rise again. That's what, in some of your markets as well, correct? There are some of these. So is my advice, I was going to ask you the final question, is a free local news access the future? Is that sustainable in your humble opinion as a person who's been around this, in different facets? You are a proponent of that then?
Yes, because I think Mike's model and the tap into model that Mike created shows that it is. And I think, I really think two things. People have an expectation on things that they should get for free. Okay, fine. People should not have to fork over money to get information. Okay. Whoever wants to put up a paywall, that's fine. We're not going to do that. We don't want someone who is on a budget when times are tight, and we don't want them, as I said, to have to choose. Come to us, get the good local journalism, and keep all the money in your pocket to go help take care of your family.
There you go. All right. Well, I got to say, I'm really, really glad that I learned of your new position. First of all, congratulations on the gig, Adam. It's great. If someone wants to get a hold of you, I'm now going to give your email addresses. That's okay, because someone might want to yell it and scream at you, or embrace what you're doing. I'm just saying, because I know we do interview a lot of digital disruptors in this industry, but and Mike's a big one. You're Adam Darsky. What is your title again, sir, at Tap Into?
Director of Content.
Director of Content. The email address, your last name is Darsky. Your email address is adarsky@tapinto.net. That's TAPINTO.net. Just go to tapinto.net if you want to see the network of hundreds, I think now, of different local entrepreneurs, publishers who are launching this network. Final question now, because I heard your background. You have produced morning shows, have you not? I mean, this is what you said to me. My wife and I are addicted to a show on Apple called The Morning Show. Are you watching it? And does it show truth on what those environments are truly like on those morning shows?
So I actually get that question a lot, and I watched The Newsroom on HBO a few years ago too.
I love the Newsroom.
I also watched the movie Broadcast News. I mean, that's not answering your question. I watched the last season. My wife has started the current season. I haven't started watching it yet, because I think I watch it through a different lens. Yeah. And I just judge, either saying, oh, that's a bunch of, bunk, or, oh, that would never happen. Or, you know what, that's actually a good idea. Maybe that should have happened. Look, it's entertainment value first. One of their consulting, I think he's a consulting producer on it, is Brian Stelter from CNN, who was embedded at ABC for a long time writing his book. So there's a sense of reality. Look, it is what it is. It's entertainment value. It's these great stars. So I was a catch up and get going with it at some point.
I was a morning man for 17 years on radio before I switched into sales and management. And at that time, I'm going to date myself now, there was a TV show called WKRP in Cincinnati.
Of course.
I had those questions all the time. I mean, is it really like that? I said, nah, not even close. It's just not even, they didn't even do a good job showing what the studio looks like.
Right.
Well, Adam, it was an honor and pleasure. Please give my best to Mike. And thank you so much for your valuable time. I wish you luck at your new gig at Tap Into. And more importantly, I'm going to keep an eye on what you're up to there. I think it's going to be fun to see what new perspective you bring, because a lot of these guys who are running those sites do not have a broadcast background. You see what I'm saying? They have a print that came over from the newspaper side. I have a feeling we're going to be seeing a little bit more video. Am I right? A little bit more fun and interactivity coming.
I think that's a pretty safe. I think that's a pretty safe guess. Yep.
Well, we'll keep an eye on you. Thanks again, Adam. Have a good day. Stay healthy, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it.